It's taken nearly $6 million, but now Incitec on Kooragang Island can make Australia's first fertiliser, designed by farmers to specifically meet their needs.
Granulock is a product that is unique to Incitec fertilisers, and it was developed here on site over a 4 or 5 year period.
Although Granulock has been on the market for nearly 4 years, the early version of the product experienced some difficulties.
Our original production of the product had some quality concerns. We made a decision some 12 months ago to fix that problem and invest in the future of our business and the business of farmers, and addressing the quality issues was the primary focus of this project.
But now the company says the fertiliser has been perfected, and Incitec is looking to the future with the Australian first multi-nutrient product.
This year we're hoping to sell in the order of 50,000 tonnes, but looking at the market and looking at the changing needs of that marketplace, we see a market value of around 100,000 tonnes in 2 to 3 years' time.
And to make it all possible, the plant has had to employ an extra 26 staff from the community. Adam Harper, NBN News.
After today's creditors' meeting, union representatives spelt out the hard facts for workers. Now 350 unemployed people had to decide whether to take that offer or go for something better. According to union organisers, workers risk losing everything if further industrial action disrupts the sale of National Textiles assets. But they unanimously rejected the administrator's offer and demanded company directors live up to what workers say are legal and moral obligations to pay all their redundancy entitlements. The union says it won't allow vehicles through the picket and threatened to take the dispute to the directors' front doors. And while the union still hopes John Howard will guarantee the $7 million in redundancy payments, the PM's brother and chairman of the National Textiles Board made his feelings clear on directors' liability for workers' entitlements.
If you adopt a situation where directors are personally liable for companies' debts, you would have no directors. It's as simple as that.
On a pitch that usually offers little to bowlers, the number one sports ground came alive today with Lismore fast bowling Gregory brothers making the most of it. In 1 over, Joel claimed 3 wickets, the first Matt Owers caught by Mark Cameron. Adam Shepherd lasted 2 balls before an inside edge onto the pad to Tim Cook had him heading back for none. Another 2 balls and another wicket, this time Tim Glanville out to a screamer in the gully by Nathan Munro. Southern crumbled to be 8 for 63 before eventually reaching 135. Play continues tomorrow. At Empire Park, however, it just wasn't cricket, with the pitch ruined by vandals overnight. Huge holes laid open the bare facts of a ground hacked into in what Newcastle cricket officials believe was a deliberate and malicious attack.
It's unbelievable, Jim. It seems to us that it's been a deliberate act by somebody who is aware of cricket, knows what goes on in a cricket game, and it almost seems as if someone was determined that the game wouldn't go ahead today.
Former Test cricketer Robert Holland couldn't believe what he saw.
It's unbelievable. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen.
It's not sure if the ground will be usable again this season. It was the first time a season launch was open to the general public and the support was obvious, with thousands turning out. With the first game in less than 2 weeks, fans got a taste of what to expect via a big screen, before the real things arrived in style. 2 weeks after one of the Knights came off a motorbike, the entire first and second grade squads rode in on them, much to the delight of the crowd. Newcastle's first game is against the Northern Eagles on February 6. To the beach and the Big Air Fiesta, essentially a bodyboard competition, but skating, BMX riding and rollerblades all got a workout. But it's bodyboards that did feature, with leading national surfers Tyson Williams and Damien King putting on a show. Andrew Webster has been one of the most consistent golfers on Belmont this week, and it showed again today, with a 69 placing him equal second. After firing a 6 under 66 yesterday, Englishman Luke Donald must have wondered what he'd done wrong today. This putt all but in. If you thought they didn't come much closer, just ask Matthew Ballard, who managed this on the same hole. Scott Gardner showed how it was done, however, after a beautiful approach, a top-class finish, as he picked up another shot to drop 7 under with 2 birdies in the first 3 holes. He actually moved to 10 under at one stage, but 3 back 9 bogeys has him 1 shot off the leaders. Scott Strange lived up to his name, having a mixed day. He dropped 3 shots on the first 3 holes, but eventually counted a 2 under 70 to take back an overall 1-shot lead with 1 round to play. In contrast to its first innings, Southern got away comfortably with Adam Shepherd escaping a pair of ducks in style. And Matt Owers also found range as the pair put on 50 for the first wicket in good time. Newcastle speedster Mark Cameron took 4 wickets yesterday, but Southern were making all the 4s today. However, the batsmen weren't the only ones doing the hitting. Cameron had both Southern openers on the back foot with some aggressive bowling. And it worked. Shepherd, lucky not to be given out after this quick single almost ended in disaster. He went on to top score with 66. But Cameron finally got his man. It needed 2 snatches, but he grabbed Owers' scalp for 31. The country under-21 team to play Sydney Colts won't be announced until Tuesday. Englishman Luke Donald applied most of the pressure to leader Scott Strange during the final holes and actually held a two-shot lead midway through the fourth round. And despite a wayward tee shot at the last, the West Australian put himself back in the picture with a classic approach to put him within reach of the title. A 2-metre putt, all that separated the 22-year-old from a birdie and the title. Finishing 11 under, Strange went one better than last year, winning by 2 shots over Donald and another Englishman, Paul Casey. The jacket a perfect fit for one of the few winners who had led from start to finish in the 72-hole event.
A lot of guys got autographs yesterday because they think he's going to go on and do something special.
While Strange mightn't be back to defend his title, players like Kiwi Gareth Patterson and Andrew Webster shape as possible future winners. But Scott Gardner showed he's a real threat as well. In fact, it was only a bad score at the 16th that cost him a chance for the crown this time around. Meanwhile, Rising Coffs Harbour player Doyle Lee won the junior event from Richard Moore. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
For the past 7 years, the Mayfield Drop-In Centre has offered a hot coffee and a friendly chat, as well as advice on everything from medical assistance to accommodation. There have been services in demand. In the past 12 months alone, more than 27,000 people passed through its doors. Today, 100 people visited the centre to farewell the Hunter mission.
What we're doing is giving the work of this centre back to the local community, and people from the local community will now run the centre and operate the centre, and so there's more a sense of community ownership about what happens here at the centre.
Critics have lashed out at the charity, accusing it of abandoning those most in need. But David Hogg says that's simply not the case.
It's certainly not a matter of bailing out. The mission will continue to be involved here with the community centre. The mission is continuing to be involved with homeless people in the new model that we've put together, and certainly there'll be an investment from the organisation into the ongoing needs of homeless people in Newcastle.
The centre will close for 2 weeks before being reopened by the Baptist Church. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
By the time ambulance officers were called to this Taree home in the early hours of June the 7th, 1998, it was too late for 17-year-old Shannon Fachney. The bloodied and bruised body of the developmentally delayed teenager was discovered in the Mudford Street home, the victim of torture inflicted over a week. In Newcastle Supreme Court today, 2 men pleaded guilty to manslaughter, one just 15 at the time of the crime. The other, now 25-year-old Mark McDonald, is also facing sentencing over the matter. In evidence tendered to the court today, he admitted to one incident where the victim was hog-tied and gagged before being placed in a bath for 13 hours. A post-mortem examination found Fachney died from a brain hemorrhage and other severe injuries sustained over the 7-day period in which he's believed to have been held captive. The pair face a maximum jail term of 20 years. The sentencing continues tomorrow. Helen Kapalos, NBN News.
"38-year-old William Charles McGarity is charged with murdering Jessica Gallacher. In Wyong court for just minutes, he didn't say a word. Outside, friends of the 4-year-old's mother couldn't hold back their grief. Wyong police told the court that late on Sunday night they arrived at a flat behind an unfinished house in Catalina Street, San Remo. There they found William McGarity, a woman, Carmelina Gallacher, and in a bedroom the body of her 4-year-old daughter, Jessica. Mrs. Gallacher was taken to hospital, suffering burns, cuts, bruises and possible fractures. Her little girl had what were described as multiple injuries, some consistent with blows to her stomach. Mr. McGarity's solicitor asked that her client receive an urgent examination for mental illness. It is alleged that he was refused admission from a local psychiatric unit just 3 days before Jessica's body was found. The court was told both Jessica's mother and family unsuccessfully sought the intervention of the police and the Department of Community Services. According to the Community Services Minister, both Gosford and Wyong Docks officers are under constant pressure and are already due to receive extra staff. She would not comment further on Jessica's death.
These are allegations that will be borne out in court. I'm not doing a running commentary on the future court case.
David McElwain, NBN News.
Devotees of all styles of country music make the pilgrimage to Tamworth each year. One distinctive style is bluegrass.
Bluegrass is really, I suppose it's an American folk music that mainly involves banjo and guitar and fiddle and mandolin and dobro.
David Helens was at home practicing today, having beaten other artists from throughout Australia and the US. David won the title once before, 12 years ago, and has since spent time in Nashville and Kentucky learning more. Wife Mel was on hand for his big win in Tamworth. David says his motivation since teaching himself how to play at age 16 is enjoyment.
It's just about having fun, really, and and playing well, doing the best you can. I don't think I'll ever really retire a millionaire from any of this.
David now plans to record his first CD. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
There has been an encouraging trend over the past few weeks in the NSL during the recent spate of doubleheaders. Teams that have won the first game have often lost the return match. Hosting South Melbourne tomorrow night after going down 2-0 to the Lakers on Sunday, Sterry hopes it continues, but he knows it won't be any easy task.
They're brimmed with stars and that's fine, but we've just got to keep our home record intact and keep going at home.
At least one change will be made to the squad of 14.
Yeah, Damien Smith will definitely come back into the 14 and either Greg Owens or Travis Dodd will make way off the bench at this stage.
Now squeezed out of the top 6 on percentages, the Breakers have a buffer, but it's cold comfort. Sterry feels like the meat in a sandwich, with the teams above looking good, and the slow starting sides below Newcastle are beginning to make their move towards the top 6.
The group behind us that are a scary team, South Melbourne, Parramatta and probably Adelaide Force, are all starting to squeeze up the table, and now they're sort of 4 or 5 points behind us. So we really need a result here on Wednesday.
Picketers at a tent opposite the Martyr receiving a steady flow of petition signers, but expecting a bigger turnout at the Newcastle Workers.
Of course they should be there. It's their hospital.
Terry Kelly, a survivor of cancer and a grateful patient of the Martyr. He says he's sleeping on site until funds for the hospital's redevelopment become available.
This ground belongs to the people of the Hunter in northern New South Wales, not Bob Carr. The Breast Imaging Research Foundation and whatever's going to be built here should be built.
NBN News has obtained a copy of the secretly taped video taken inside the Martyr, smuggled out of the hospital and to be screened in full tonight at the Workers' Club meeting. The staff who took it say it graphically shows a number of scenes that would concern anyone expecting more from Australia's hospital system, including a patient being treated on a trolley in a hallway. Question marks over the current allocation of $50 million a year to the Martyr have also been raised. Hunter Health figures indicating the same annual funding also goes from them to hospitals like the John Hunter, who are able to deliver care to close to 2,000 more people through emergency and who also admit at least 100 more patients every year. Martyr Hospital Management says it will be watching tonight's public meeting with great interest and will comment afterwards. Matt Carden, NBN News. We've already been through the industrial age, the nuclear age, and maybe the new millennium signals the environmental age, an era being embraced by a group of Hunter business and civic delegates attending an ecotourism forum.
We've heard some terrific ideas come up today, including things such as a walk from Newcastle Baths to Merewether Baths, following the coastal strip, improved education for ecotourism facilities, improved infrastructure such as improved signage so that tourists when they get here can know what they're looking at, and maps so that people can get around to the natural attractions in the city.
Meantime, a parcel of fragile wetland is under threat on Newcastle's south side. The section known as the Belmont Wetlands between Redhead and Belmont, owned by BHP, has the big Australian calling for development, wanting Lake Macquarie Council to rezone it for residential and commercial use, a call rejected by members of the Lake Macquarie Council.
We don't believe it's appropriate that that land be used for residential. It should come into the community ownership and be used for conservation and recreational purposes.
While evaluation on the land has been deferred largely because of cost, BHP has indicated it wants up to $50 million for the area, a cost no council could afford.
I think they're being quite greedy in what they're doing to the community. They're basically robbing the community of natural assets. They've taken a lot of money out of this region. I think it's time they gave something back.
England's players must have felt like hopping on the nearest plane home after yesterday's loss at Bowral. Chasing 107 to win, captain Nova Castri and Belinda Clark led the Australian run chase, the visitors beaten by 10 wickets. Today, Clark spent time at the beach while some teammates got their eye in for tomorrow's match. In this World Cup year, every game is crucial, and Australia is determined to keep up its unbeaten series run.
But we're all trying to wrap up the series 4-0. We don't want it to finish on 3-1, so we'll be playing hard tomorrow and hopefully coming out 4-0.
Meanwhile, the English side is out to finish its tour on a high note. Injured fast bowler Lucy Pearson was put through a fitness test today, while team officials look to tomorrow's game.
I don't like losing. I don't like losing to Australians, so hopefully it's going to be 3-1 and then at least we can move out of here with some sort of pride, I suppose, having won one game.
While most of Rebecca's friends are getting their L plates, she's learning to fly a light aircraft. And for the 16-year-old student from Maitland, it's a dream come true.
I've loved it ever since I was born, and it's just great being up there and seeing everything from up in the sky, which you usually don't get to see.
Rebecca is a member of the first class of aviation students in the state to sign up for a 2-unit HSC subject called aeronautics, being offered through the Avondale College near Cooranbong. As well as studying theory, they'll chalk up about 30 hours of flying a year, eventually gaining a private pilot's licence. It's a demanding course designed for a special type of person.
They have to show the right attributes. They need to have the right temperament. It's no good if they're a panicky sort. They need to be fairly calm and cool about things.
And these class of high flyers are confident they've got what it takes.
This is a perfect opportunity to get into flying, being a pilot, etc.
I've always wanted to be a pilot ever since I was a kid, and I'd also like to go into the Air Force, so it's a good way to get in.
Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
The Breakers looked to be in trouble early on in the match against South Melbourne, when Vaughan Coveney opened up the account with a goal in the 6th minute. And it wasn't through lack of trying that the Breakers were held at bay. Some optimistic shots, all they could manage to get past a tight Melbourne defence. But the tables were turned when Andy Harper headed in a high cross to level the scores. 9 minutes later, when the ball finally touched ground, it was sent straight to the back of Melbourne's net, courtesy of Andy Harper once again. It wasn't until the second half that South Melbourne levelled the scores, leaving the game at a 2-2 draw. The Breakers' next game is against Wollongong Wolves in Wollongong on Sunday night.
If we get 3 points down in Wollongong, we're on track with what I allocated for 5 difficult games, 7 points. So they've got a few players out, I understand, but we've got to step up to the task on the road.
Staff at National Textiles are in the same boat as hourly paid workers waiting for entitlements. CEO Derek Hodge met with them this morning to share the good news. $7 million from the super fund should soon be available for all employees.
We believe that we have found a way that we can allow the employees to gain access to the unpreserved entitlements within another week or so.
Martin Ferguson, ALP spokesperson on regional development, visited the picket today and described a sense of desperation as interest rates and petrol prices both rose. He hit out at the PM who hasn't been seen at Rutherford by the 350 workers set to lose $4 million in entitlements.
You broke your regional tour to go to Melbourne for the Allan Border Medal presentation.
McGrath walked past him like he was a bag of spuds, and that's what he is. John Howard ought to get here, come down the picket line and explain his lack of attention and support for you.
The National Textiles CEO says he has met with Peter Reith, the Industrial Relations Minister, about his rescue package which cuts out when workers receive $20,000.
We said that we didn't think it would bridge the gap and therefore maybe he might have another look at it, and Mr Starr, the administrator, has written to him to ask him to have another look at it. And we're hoping for a response.
The fastest man in rugby league couldn't win the race to recover from his injured ankle, ruling himself out at today's training.
Just with a bit of training today, and tried to test it out a little bit, and it hasn't come up to my expectations anyway, so I'm not going to be off for this weekend, which is a bit of a letdown for me.
That means he'll join Robbie O'Davis on the sideline, but it also allows Lenny Beckett to start, with teenage star Justin Ryder drafted into the squad to make the trip south to his old stomping ground on the Central Coast.
Feels like it's a dream coming true, that, playing alongside the Matty Johns, Andrew Johns and Gids and all that. You work for it all your life and I feel like the luckiest man in the world.
One player he may get to face off against is Brett Grogan. The ex-Knights player is now with the Northern Eagles and could be a late inclusion on game day. But another who'll definitely play for Newcastle is Andrew Johns.
With each run, I think he's just getting more confident, apart from the injury itself, getting a little bit of exercise and perhaps getting a bit stronger, and he's getting more confident.
Confidence in the referee Stephen Clark is something Ryan wishes he had more of. The whistleblower was criticised for his control of the Knights' last match last season, and he'll be in the hot seat once again on Sunday night.
We're just hopeful that in his mind that he approaches the game with an open mind. I mean, last season to us, we can't improve our efforts last season, but maybe he could improve his a bit, if I could be so bold to say.
The match will be shown on NBN on Sunday night.
The verbal stoush continued today. This time the Mater staff stepped into the ring to counter comments made by Hunter Health CEO Catherine McGrath. Suggestions that the Mater was operating inefficiently had staff reeling.
It's just unfair and mischievous, and we feel we need to answer that.
Dr Ford accused Hunter Health of misrepresenting the Mater by releasing irrelevant statistics. He says they don't take into account the different needs of patients at the Mater, who are almost always facing a life-threatening illness.
The fact is that the patients at the Mater suffer from more complex conditions than patients at other hospitals. That's just a reality.
Figures which do take these conditions into account were on show today, revealing a minimal cost difference between Hunter hospitals when it comes to patient care. Staff accused McGrath of clouding the issue, taking the focus off the main point.
The question simply is, why is the Hunter asked to go and find money of its own to support one of its public hospitals for redevelopment? These issues in relation to statistics are a distraction from what is the main problem.
Vanessa Spark, NBN News.